Welcome back to the YouTube channel. My name is Lucas, 3 Point Spanish King, and here today we have a guest, Adam, who's joined us all the way from New Zealand. We know it is very late there, so we'll try to keep him as shortly as possible. Hello, Adam. How are you doing?
I'm good, and yourself, mate?
I'm doing fantastic. I had a as I said to you, I had a T20 match today, and I just finished that, and I'm in the streets of Adelaide. So I apologise up front to the broadcasters and the viewers. That if they're hearing a lot of background noise, I do apologise. That I will try to mute my mic. So we'll get straight into the review. Day 4, a very interesting day, nonetheless, which has been a very good Test match so far. India resumed their innings, 2 down. New Zealand needed quick wickets, and exactly that's what the doctor ordered. I thought the fast bowling of Southee and Jamieson were fantastic, Adam, during the morning spell, and India were in all sorts of trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, India obviously got that valuable 50-run lead, and it was really imperative that New Zealand could get some early wickets early on day 4. And you know what a spell by Jamieson. You know, especially that delivery they got Pujara, a bit of extra bounce, got him strangle down the leg side, and him and Southee were superb. A great spell. And unfortunately for New Zealand, I felt like they let the game drift on a little bit during the middle sessions. I think Kane Williamson's captaincy, to be honest, was a little bit negative at times, especially with the spinners on. And unfortunately, they got away from New Zealand, and it looks like it's going to be a tough chase tomorrow on day 5.
As I told Adam Michael that quick wickets is what the doctor ordered, and that's exactly what happened with their fast bowling unit. But unfortunately, Iyer once again, unbelievable on debut. Just scored 100. Him and if he's not doing damage to the ball, he's doing damage to the bat. Fantastic partnership between Axar Patel and Iyer has forwarded New Zealand, probably saved the game for India, possibly won the game. So how did you see that?
I agree with Adam. I think we got ourselves into a fantastic position. I mean, at 51, was it 51 or 49? 51 for 5. 51 for 5. And we didn't put men around the bat. What's happening? We didn't have 51 for 5, and we had one slip in, and one slip and one gully, and that was it. And the bowlers on top. What? I mean, that's just... If I was coaching and it was a junior team, I'd be pulling the captain off and having a word to him and saying, if you don't sort this out, someone else is going to be captaining next week. Because you can't, if you're at 51 for 5, you've got everything happening. Everything is on your side. All of the momentum's on your side. All of the psychic energy, to use a Murray... to use a Murray Mextianism, all the psychic energy is with one team, and you instead set a defensive field and bring on Russian Ravindra and tell him to bowl flat into leg stump. It was just unbelievably bad. And I mean, I tend to not criticize New Zealand captains. Yeah, there's obviously more going on than I know of, but I just don't see what it could have been. I don't understand why going super defensive was the right move and could have been the right move in any situation there. It just seemed dumb.
Continuing on Kane Williams' captaincy, Adam, how did you see Kane Williamson's captaincy? Were you disappointed? Were you angry? He wasn't that great in the first innings. He was very poor, actually, very nervous. How did you see him today as a captain?
I mean, I think as Michael was saying, there should have been men around the bat. I mean, this is kind of like reminiscent of like someone like Miss Burrell Hart with those kind of conservative tactics, to be honest. I mean, when you've got a team, 50-odd for 5, that's a time when you really need to, drive home the advantage. And we let the momentum go. And unfortunately, without those men around the bat, without them in the slips, we missed a few opportunities. There was I think it was a nick by Ayaan that went through the slips. If there was a normal slip cord, and that would have been a dismissal, and that would have been early on in Ayer's innings, and we know that he ended up getting 60-odd runs. There was no pressure applied to the Indian batsmen, and as a result, you could see them getting comfortable. As Michael said, Ravindra was brought into the attack. I really question his selection in the team now when I think about his role in the lineup. maybe looking back, I think, Michael, you've mentioned Wagner a few times on Twitter, and I think I disagree with you on Twitter, thinking that I think maybe we should have played the two spinners. But now look, in retrospect, I think Wagner probably should have played, and maybe should have been, say, Santner for Ravindra and Wagner for one of the two spinners, or probably Somerville, because I think it just kind of highlighted outside Jamieson and Southee, there wasn't really any wicket-taking options in the bowling lineup. And also the fact is that there weren't men around the bat, which meant there wasn't pressure being applied to the Indian batsmen either. So you add in that side of it, plus Kane's captaincy, New Zealand didn't really look like taking wickets, apart from those two missed opportunities against Saha.
Yeah, but there were a couple that popped up to the leg side from Somerville and also from Patel, but there was no one there to catch them. Like they drew a false shot, but there was no one standing there in front of the wickets ready to pounce on it. It was just, you can't, as a spin bowler, you can't be successful. You can't bowl an attack. You've got to bowl in a super attacking line if you're not given an attacking field. If you want to bowl a defensive line, you're given an attacking field, so there's someone there to catch it, and then the batsmen have to force it. It was just, it was so disappointing because we had the chance. We had India on toast, and now we're going to have to play out of our skins to save the match.
I feel your pain, Michael. Now you know what I feel like every time I have to watch an Ashes series in England. It's just absolutely heartbreaking. You get angry, you throw the damn remote control, you think, what are we doing? So, no doubt, very disappointed. But Adam mentioned the spinners. How did you see the spinners in this test, Michael?
Well, they were okay. Not much more than that. I thought Ajaz Patel, the Indians had really good plans for him. You could see they'd really studied him and they'd really worked out where they were going to bat, how they were going to play. There was very clear plans that the Indian batsman had, and so he had to try different things. It didn't come off, and I think you look at that and you go, well, you've got to give the credit to the batsman here rather than necessarily saying it was poor bowling. Somerville bowled better than I was expecting, but still didn't really create. Yeah, he created a couple of chances on the first day, and there was no one took them, but. Look, he's a good spin, a reasonably good spin bowler playing against guys who are excellent at facing spin. Ravindra did about what I was expecting. He gives you, he's trying to bowl the defensive line, but he gives you a pressure release ball every over and a half. So that's, you can get away with that at New Zealand domestic level where the guys aren't so used to facing quality spin, but he's a net bowler in India. That's basically what they face when they're warming up. So, it's a little bit like when Bangladesh come to New Zealand and they bring out their fourth seamer. And he's like a club bowler in New Zealand because their fourth seamer is just not up to international standard, and our third spinner just wasn't in this match. But a lot of it was the Indians were really good, but also the fields we used didn't give them anything to use, anything to go with.
Oh, sorry. In India, because of the way Patel and Saha played in Ashwin, they really set New Zealand a very difficult task. And unfortunately, they lost a wicket of Will Young very late, where Ashwin picking up that wicket. How much pressure is on this New Zealand batting lineup, particularly Ross Taylor? Now, Ross Taylor has struggled a bit. Now, he did make some runs in the Test Ball Championship final in England, but since then he has really struggled with his form. How much? This is for both of you. How much pressure is Ross Taylor and Kane Williamson under for this innings coming up?
Now two. The two most experienced batters in the lineup, and they've always been guys that New Zealand can depend on. So obviously those two guys in particular are going to have a lot of pressure. In particular, Kane Williamson, who's New Zealand's best batter and best batsman against spinner. I think the other guy that will have a massive impact is Henry Nicholls, because he's a superb player of spin. And if we think back to 2018 when when New Zealand won a series against Pakistan in the UAE, it was Henry Nicholls and Kane Williamson that really rescued New Zealand in the third and final Test match when New Zealand were behind and had a huge first innings deficit. So, I mean, I think it's going to be up to all of the batsmen to try to get New Zealand out of trouble here. I don't think it's just going to be reliant on Kane Williamson or Ross Taylor. It's going to be a team effort. Like, it's going to be very difficult for New Zealand to bat up, the full 90 overs tomorrow. But I'm sure it's just for now they're not even going to be thinking about winning the game. It's about obviously seeing off the first couple of sessions, and maybe if New Zealand are close enough, maybe they could have a dart. But at this moment, it's unlikely that New Zealand will get close to winning. It looks like it will be either a draw or Indian win at this stage, especially now Will Young's been dismissed.
Oh, and that Will Young dismissal, I mean, what a terrible, terrible decision. And then to not refer it in time. And they did refer it. Yeah, they referred it as 0 came up on the timer, and the umpire said, no, too late. I don't think the umpire gave him the warning, which he's supposed to give him, to say you've got 5 seconds left to refer it. So I think there was an umpiring error there. But there was one massive umpiring error, and that he was given out to a ball that was going to miss a fourth stump. It was an appalling decision. And it wasn't just. It was like the 80s with the hometown umpiring decision. It was that bad, and poor Will Young has to walk off. Look, it's his own fault he didn't refer it, but he shouldn't have been in a position where he had to refer it, because that should have never ever been given out.
So, how do you two see day 5, the last day, heading? What are your thoughts on day 5? We know what you'd like to. We know you'd like to see Kane Williamson and Tom Latham make hundreds and win the game. But what do you think, in your opinion, will happen in day 5, both of you?
I'm not highly optimistic. I mean, at this stage, I mean, if we could scrape out with a draw right now, I mean, I'd be really happy. I mean, to be honest, it also gets us some valuable points in the World Test Championship as well. So I think if you come with a draw in India, I think, I'm not saying it's as good as a win, but I mean, you get something out of it. And I think that's probably what New Zealand's aim would be at this point. I mean, they need 280 runs, to get still there or thereabouts, 90 overs left, 3 and over. I don't even think they're going to be looking at the run rate at this point. I think it's just seeing off their quality Indian bowling lineup. And as we've seen, like with our Axar Patel bowled in the first innings, I mean, he was getting things out of that pitch, and that the New Zealand spinners could only dream of. So it's going to be a tough ask, especially on day 5, with the pitch starting to break up a little bit more.
Yeah, ball keeping low makes it pretty tough. When you get them bouncing, you get the pitch on the same spot, one of them's hitting you in the hip and the extra one's hitting you in the ankle. It's pretty tough to play against that. Yeah. Look, to be honest, I think if we make it past T, we will have done pretty well. I'd love for us to draw the match, and that's really what we're hoping for. But if we get to T, we say taking India to the final session on a game in India. Not many teams do that, actually. That's a pretty good effort. That's probably where I'm at this point.
Well, by watching your emotional face, Michael, I can see that you're in a lot of pain over this today's play. Talking about it, so I feel your pain. Like I said, I felt this many times in the Ashes during the England series, with Ben Stokes, 2005, Headingley, and all that. So I know what it feels, Michael. You just got to stay tough, and of course, very recently with India. So we've got to stay tough, and hopefully New Zealand can pull off a miracle. India did it in Australia with 4 world-class bowlers. So obviously, way different conditions, but there is hope. So don't give up, and let's hopefully, for your 2 sakes, New Zealand can somehow get this with ideally Williamson making 100, Latham making 100, Ross Taylor doing something, and getting you through. So hopefully that's
it sounds like a 7-wicket victory for New Zealand, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well. The good thing is that it isn't a minefield. It's not the worst pitch to play on. So if Axar Patel and Saha can make runs, I'm sure it's going to be tough the first session. But you got to put your head down got to bat sensibly, and there's no reason there should be a collapse unless this pitch absolutely does something and it gets in their heads. But thank you.
This pitch does seem to be much easier to bat on after about 30 overs. When the ball's about 30 overs old, and when you get out of that morning session with the bad light, once the fog lifts and it seems to be much easier to bat on. So hopefully we can get through to lunch without too much damage and then bat out the day.
Okay, and my last question for both of you before we wrap the show up: any final thoughts about today's play?
I'll leave it to Michael while I think about some extra thoughts.
or even about tomorrow's play. Any final thoughts?
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I'll just say, like, how good's Cole Jamieson been? I mean, geez, he just keeps delivering when New Zealand need him the most. And I'll be honest with you, I wasn't really sure how he'd go in India, and I think he's really surprised a whole lot of people, you know, who thought maybe he wouldn't be quite as effective in Indian conditions. So like he's just on fire, isn't he? I mean, the fastest New Zealander to 50 wickets in 9 matches. I think there's only 3 other people this century that have got 50 Test wickets quicker than him. He just, every time he bowls, he just seems like he's improving all the time. Sky's the limit for him. And as a New Zealand fan, what can I say? Like, we've got plenty of years left of Cole Jamieson. I hope, knock on wood, he doesn't get injured now.
Dale Headley said, I think Kyle would be better than my brother. And that's pretty good praise. But to be fair, Dale Headley also said that about David Sewell, and he didn't turn out to be so good. It may not be a great judge, but yeah, I think Jamieson's wonderful. I think Tim Southee is just going from strength to strength too. It's about 3 years ago, a lot of people were calling for him to be dropped and say, why is he still on the side? He shouldn't be there anymore. We need to get rid of him. No one's going to call for him to get dropped now. He's just turned into an absolute world-class bowler. And it's kind of what we hoped when he burst through as a teenager. We hoped this was going to happen. It's taken longer than we were expecting, but we're finally seeing it.
Just on Southee, Michael, like, you know, a lot of people have always questioned his ability to bowl outside New Zealand. And I think obviously in this test match, he's kind of proved that he can bowl outside New Zealand, and in particular in Asian conditions. I was actually really impressed with him on the tour of Australia. It was a really tough tour for New Zealand, but I actually thought he bowled really well. I mean, obviously he didn't get a big bag of wickets or rip through the Australian lineup, but I think on that tour that he really surprised me. You know, and even in the tough times, he just kept running in, and you could really see that he was working so hard, and how much it kind of showed how much he improved his cricket, bowling in really flat conditions. And I think along with him and Neil Wagner now, they're like two of probably the spearheads of the New Zealand attack.
Yeah, in fact, in a lot of ways, Bolt is probably now the fourth bowler, whereas he was the spearhead not too long ago. Now you look at him, you go, well, if you're only going to pick 3, it's probably Jamieson, Wagner, and Southee. I was looking 2.5 years ago. Bolt had more Test wickets than Southee. Now Southee's got 30 more than Bolt. So that shows how those things have changed. But I was really critical of, it's on a bit of a tangent, but of Dimitri Mascarenhas, that when he was Southee's coach, bowling coach, he took Southee and Bolt, and they went from bowling 140 and swinging the ball to bowling 135 and doing nothing, bowling dead straight, or in Southee's case down to 130. And I thought, what a waste of time. But Mascarenhas really worked on that 3/4 ball with Southee, and now you're seeing almost all of his wickets are coming with that delivery. And you've got to go, well, while in the short term what he did wasn't good, long term it actually has turned out to be pretty helpful, developing that delivery. So I maybe need to apologize for some of my criticism.
Okay. Well, always a pleasure for Adam and Michael to join us all the way from New Zealand. And we hope they'll be back here tomorrow at the same time. Well, for their sake, if we are here at the same time, it means that New Zealand have done very well. But if we're here before lunch or after tea, that means not so good, Michael. So for your two sake, hopefully we're doing this at the same time tomorrow.
Yeah, hopefully.
All right, guys. Thank you for joining. That is all for today. Make sure to like, subscribe, and give Adam and Michael a follow on Twitter. Very good opinions, and they like giving their opinions to many people. and expand their knowledge also. So give them a follow. Thank you for joining our show, and we will see you tomorrow. Thank you, Adam and Michael.
Thanks.
Thanks very much.